this journey of hospitality is quite, uh, it's, how do I put it? Hospitality for me is not a job. Hospitality is not something that you clock in the morning and you go home in the evening. It's a way of life. It is truly a way of life. I can tell you from my own experience, and that's the best way to share, is my experience. Many people have their own experiences. Allow me to tell you my experience. I wanted to be a doctor many years ago in India. I grew up in India. I wanted to be a doctor. Didn't materialize. So one of my friends said, "Why don't you try hospitality management?" So I went into the Dadar Catering College in Mumbai, and I put my application in, and I was taken in. The first year of my hospitality, like young people, I used to party a lot. I used to hang around and never really took my studies very seriously. And then during the second year, one of the students in the class said to me, "Hey, Subash, you can't beat me in studies. You're at the bottom of the class. You can't beat me at all." And I said, "You want to see that?" And he said, "Okay." So we got into some kind of a competition. And I really started hating the books. I started studying. I really took interest in hospitality and studies, learning everything. And finally, at the year end, I passed. I stood first in the college. I got a gold medal for the state, and I was chosen by Taj as a chef. And there were 35 of us who joined Taj in Mumbai. And to become a chef in Taj or to join Taj in the 70s, we are talking about 1976, 1977, was absolutely a dream for anybody who was in the hospitality industry. So I joined Taj as a chef, and my first job, I clearly remember my first job going to Tanjore restaurant in India, and as an apprentice chef, the chef gave me a bag of onions, maybe 80-kilo bag of onions, and said, go and peel the onions." So for 1 week, I did nothing but peeling onions. I used to go home smelling like an onion. People wouldn't sit next to me in the bus. I sit in the bus and people would move away because I was smelling like an onion. Anyway, it was quite disappointing in the beginning to think that I'd studied, I've done so much work. We had 14, 15 subjects ranging from French to whatever science, nutrition, cookery theory, wines, spirits, the whole thing, and you go and you end up cleaning onions. It was a bit of a downer, but it was an introduction into the hospitality reality of day-to-day life. It was a shock to the system. And while I was in the kitchen, I learned a lot of skills from in those days in the 70s. Many people wouldn't teach you. The secrets were guarded: how to make a good biryani, how to make a chicken makhani, how to make a tandoori chicken, how to use the tandoor oven. These were all closely guarded secrets. There was no such thing as training in those days. There was no such thing as training. I mean, you had to latch on to somebody who was a master chef, and the master chef would teach you. And if you got along well with him, he would tell you all his little secrets, right down to the point that he would bring little packets of spices from home in his little pocket, and he'll open the packet and he'll add it when nobody was looking. He'd add it in the sauce, and the sauce would taste completely different. And I asked him what was inside. He said, "Ah, that's my Khandani recipe," or he'd say, "This is a recipe from my forefathers or from my grandfathers, and I won't share it with you." Oh well, it took a while for me to understand how the system works. And then I got out of the kitchen, out of the Indian kitchen. I went into a place called Chambers in Taj, and Chambers was the club for all the top industrialists in India, from Tata to Ambani to all these people. And they used to come there, and I was the trainee chef there. I was a trainee chef. I wasn't doing much. But in those days, we had no internet. In those days, no social media, no internet, no mobile phones, nothing. So the only way you can learn is through magazines and books. So I used to read books, and I used to read the Gourmet magazine, and I used to read quite a lot and experiment with my different recipes and experiment with different things and come up with my own way of doing things. It was quite successful, and then from then the Taj sent me overseas for training. They sent me to Hong Kong and Bangkok. In 1979, I went to the Siam Intercontinental Hotel in Thailand, in Siam in Bangkok, and then I went to Hong Kong in 1979. And both the hotels are no longer there now. And I still remember in those days, China was closed. It was still under the Iron Curtain. People couldn't go into China in those days. And Hong Kong was an eye-opening thing for me. I mean, 1977, going to Hong Kong, it was like, whoa, this is amazing. Going to Thailand was wow, amazing. And then as a chef, I came back to India and I did my stuff. And then the company sent me again to America, to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park in New York. Um, the Taj Group got a group of chefs together from all their hotels, and we were sent to become good executive chefs on things, not basically how to learn recipes, but to learn how the new system and the new technology was. And the Culinary Institute of America is what is like Cornell University is today to chefs. They had very, very advanced teaching methods, and most of them, and in those days, we used to have culinary Olympics. Every 2 years, there used to be an Olympics for chefs in Germany. And the Culinary Institute of America used to send most of their students and their teachers to participate in the Olympics, and they won a lot of gold medals. So most of them had written books, and they had started the new methods of cooking, low temperature cooking for making consommes, and so it was an experience how to do ice carving and different butter sculptures and all the different things to give you the tools to be an executive chef. I came back to India and I put all these things into practice. That's where I met Nari. And I was the chef at the Rendezvous. Rendezvous was the French restaurant on the rooftop of Taj. It was a very exclusive French restaurant. It opened many, many years ago. And I was lucky. I was extremely lucky to cook for some amazing people in those days, and be part of the hotel group. I worked in Taj, and then I went back to Europe. The company sent me to London to work in a restaurant called Langen's Brasserie, which was Michael Caine, the film actor, movie star, his restaurant, and to learn about the British style of cooking. We used to do things like the whole Angus beef used to come from Scotland. We used to carry it on our back, take it down to the butchery, open the whole thing out, cut everything open, and basically learning everything from scratch. It wasn't easy. It was quite difficult. Then I came back to India, and I worked in a restaurant called Ménage à Trois in London. And this restaurant was Lady Diana, Princess Diana's favorite restaurant, where they did small first courses and desserts only. They didn't do main courses. And we brought that concept to India, and we opened a restaurant called Ménage à Trois in the hotel. The restaurant did extremely well, and then I had the opportunity to migrate to Australia. So I migrated to Melbourne in 1984. I came to Melbourne in 1984. I had my own restaurant in Chapel Street, on the corner of Chapel Street and Toorak Road. Amazing location. I had my own restaurant for a few years called Menage, and in those days the Como was still being built. It wasn't complete yet. So I ran that restaurant for 2 years, and then after some time, it was quite difficult to run restaurants in those days in India. Sorry, in Melbourne. I still remember in 1984 when I went to Melbourne, there were two Indian restaurants only. Two Indian restaurants in Melbourne. One was called Phantom of India, and one was Taj. That was it. And Melbourne was just growing. It was just starting to become a culinary capital, and the hotel. In those days, the good restaurants were standalone restaurants. After I closed my restaurant, I worked in a restaurant called Petit Choux in Armadale, on High Street in Armadale. It's probably gone now. It was typical classical French food, doing classical French food for a few years. And things moved on. My family came over to Melbourne. You know how things are in Australia. You got to work. I started working 2 jobs, then I started working 3 jobs just to keep things alive and float. And finally, I ended up opening the Sheraton in Melbourne, which was in 1992 in the South Bank, or the banks of the Yarra. And now it's a Langham Hotel at the moment. I opened that hotel as a chef in 1992, and I grew up. I started as a chef de partie, and I became a sous chef, and I became an executive chef there. And I ran the kitchen there for 4 years as an executive chef. And in 1996, the company asked me to go to China. And to go from Australia to China, a hotel that I had 25 staff, I went to Beijing in China to open one of the largest hotels in the company in Sheraton in those days. It was a 1,000-room hotel called the Great Wall Sheraton in Beijing. I landed in China in 1996, and my first walk through the door, I was greeted by 450 chefs. We had 9 kitchens. We had 9 kitchens and we had 450 chefs. And it was, for me, it was like, whoa, what's going on here? Moving from a hotel that was doing 20 chefs to 450 chefs. It was a culture shock for me. China was growing, and they wanted us to teach them the Australian method of working, that is increasing productivity and bringing new ideas into the hospitality industry. While I was in Beijing at the Great Wall Sheraton, the company Starwood formed, and it became Starwood, and the new company started, and we had 5 hotels in China in those days. A Sheraton in Beijing and Tianjin, Xi'an, Guilin, and Shanghai. Um, then I moved to another hotel called the Sheraton in Tianjin, and I got my first opportunity for somebody. My boss came to me one day and said, "Hey, do you want to do a role where you do the chef's role in the morning and the F&B manager's role in the afternoon?" And I said, that's interesting. In those days, the chef was a chef and the restaurant manager was a restaurant manager. There was a line, there was literally a line between the two of them, and the two would sometimes clash. So this was a new concept. So the term chef and B director was born. I was one of the first chef and B directors for the company. So in the morning, I used to wear a chef jacket, go and cook in the kitchen, do all the work, and then in the afternoon, after 3 o'clock, go and shower, change, wear a suit, come out, and do all the restaurant part of the work. And it gave me an insight into a lot of things. For example, budgeting, forecasting, management, marketing, social media. In those days, we didn't really have social media as such. We had marketing in other ways, websites, web design, flyers. We did more of flyers and things like that. But it was a good insight for to become a business where you're business minded. As a chef, you only focused on cooking food and making really good food and coming up with, but you're not really focused on selling the food. So it really gave me an insight into the revenue part and the production part of F&B. That was a very interesting thing. Then I left that and I moved internally to open a new hotel in northern China in Manchuria, which is called Shenyang in northern China. I opened a hotel called Sheraton Shenyang. It was one of the most difficult properties to open. It was about 600 rooms when it opened, and then we cut it down to 400 rooms. And I was there for 2.5 years, 3 years, opening the hotel. It was just to give you an idea, winters in that place were minus 25 degrees. So when you're in a place where it's minus 25 degrees with no heating, and you're sitting in a pre-opening office with gloves and a coat and a jacket doing all your pre-opening stuff, quite challenging, extremely challenging. So um, I opened that hotel, and then after I opened that hotel, I ran that hotel as an executive chef and became an F&B director there for 2 years, 3 years, and then the St. Regis in Shanghai, they called me to come as a chef and be director in St. Regis in Shanghai. So I went to St. Regis in Shanghai and opened the first St. Regis or the second St. Regis in China as a chef and be director, where I did both the front and the back. I did that for 2 years and then went to a place called Hainan, which is an island in the southern part of China called Hainan Island, as a F&B director to do the pre-opening of a brand new hotel. A brand new hotel. I did the opening of that hotel, opened that hotel, got it open up and running, and then I briefly left the company because I had some visa issues. I had to go back. I had to leave the country because of tax issues, and I'd already been in the country for 10 years. So I went to Japan, and I went to Japan as a EAM of food and beverage to Hilton hotels in Narita and Tokyo. And the owners had 4 hotels in Japan, so I was looking after 4 properties in Japan, in Narita and Tokyo. And while I was there, I met on a visit. I met the president of Hilton Hotels, whose client were the president of Hilton Hotels. It just by chance, I was driving him around as a chauffeur, and he said to me, "What are you doing in Japan?" I said, "You're Australian, Indian, worked in China. What are you doing here in Japan? Why don't you go back to India and work in India?" I said, "Okay." So I went back to India and I was working trying to open a resort in just behind Mumbai. Unfortunately, the financial crash came in 2008, and India was hit very badly. So then I got an opportunity to go back to China in 2008. They asked me to come back to do the Olympics in China. So I went to Beijing, to the Regent Hotel in Beijing to do the Olympics as a executive assistant manager, number two in F&B, to run through 2 hotels in Beijing. I did the Olympics, the 2008 Olympics in Beijing. Uh, Channel 7 was there. The whole hotel was taken by Channel 7. And we did a lot of people. Qantas was the official partner for the hotel. And we had a lot of people coming from Australia for the Olympics, the first opening day and throughout the Olympic period. And then after 2 years over there, I went to the St. Regis in Beijing. And I went back to the St. Regis, and the St. Regis, I was lucky enough to do President George Bush, President Obama, and a few other presidents, the Foreign Minister of Australia, the Prime Minister of Australia, and a few other places, because it was a hotel that was owned by the Foreign Ministry of China. After that, the owners of the hotel in Hainan asked me to come there as a general manager. So I went down to Hainan as a general manager. I went there as a GM, and my first task was to host the president of China. So I hosted the president of China in that hotel and was there for 3.5 years. And then another company asked me near Shenzhen, go and open a hotel in Shenzhen. So I went to Shenzhen. And then in 2014, I got an opportunity to go back to Australia. I think some of you have heard of Palazzo Versace in Australia on the Gold Coast. They asked me to go there as general manager. So I went there as general manager in 2014. The hotel was a bit run down. It was a bit challenged. I was there for 2 years, and I brought the hotel back to some kind of a status. And then the owners in China asked me to come back to do renovations for the hotel. So I went back to China to do renovations for the hotel, and I finished. I did 3 years there, and then I decided that I wanted to slow down a little bit. I decided to go to Malaysia. And the reason why I came to Malaysia was because of heritage. I'm Indian. My wife is Chinese. So we wanted to come to a city, and Penang is a foodie city. I don't know how many of you know about Penang and know about Malaysia. Penang is a foodie city where the culture is all about the different amalgamation of different cultures here. So I came here to open a hotel called the Courtyard by Marriott, the first courtyard in the country. And the Courtyard had just uh, rebranded its image and done a completely new makeover of its image. So I'm here at the Courtyard. Unfortunately, COVID-19 struck, and with COVID, you know, things have the hospitality industry has been very badly hit. Yeah. The hospitality industry has been very badly hit, and because of that, we have to change the way we do things and change the way we do our business. My hotel is closed for 1 month at the moment because we just finished construction. We opened the hotel. We still got a bar to open at the moment, but the business has the government has put a lockdown in the city at the moment, and they will open the lockdown. Say end of February, they'll open the lockdown. We'll probably start, trading again. So that's been my journey. There's a lot of I've been in the business since I was, since 1974. It's been a long time, and I don't look at it as part of. It's not a job. It's part of life. It's what I love. It's what I do. I love Melbourne. Melbourne's my home. Um, I hope one day I'll be able to go back. I know Melbourne's changed a lot. I was lucky enough to see Melbourne when it was growing in the 80s. And, it's so good to see that people like you have got into hospitality and getting into this. Hospitality will change. The way we do business will change. And the biggest thing that is important in hospitality is flexibility, is to be flexible, to be adaptable to your situations with whatever is happening around you. Just like this morning, the audio wouldn't work, the video wouldn't work, but you got to adapt and you got to move on. I know that Nari is doing a lot of, as a chef, Nari and I worked together. He was working for me, very talented chef. I have visions of him working in the soup section and working in the fish section. He used to come in every morning and do his mise en place, and it was a very difficult regime in those days, very regimented, very difficult, very strict, um, and we had a good time. I must say we had a good time. So I'm open to you guys. Anything you want to ask, anything you want to know, I'll be very happy to reach out. You can reach out to me, or you can ask me any questions you want. I'll be happy to share my experiences with you. But remember, these are my experiences, right?
Hi, it's me, Sam Waiba. How are you? Hi, are you hearing me?
I can hear you. Yes.
It's me, Sam Waiba from Nepal, studying a diploma in hospitality management. Yeah, it's my honor to talk with you face to face. And my question is that in a typical scenario, when the hotel is not making our target revenue, what measure you have to do to improve the situation and meet or exceed to get targets?
Okay.
Do you focus on marketing or cutting the labor cost or the cost of goods?
Okay. That's a very, very good question. Very valid question at this point in time. Okay. Let me answer that question in a different sort of. There are different strategies that you need to do. Okay. The first thing you need to first decide, what are the core values of your organization and core values of your company. Okay. When we mean core values, we're not talking about only one item, because a hotel consists of bricks, mortar, hardware, software. And software is people. Hardware is your building and your thing. Third one is reputation. These three things have to be worked hand in hand. Now, the most important thing that you need to focus on is finding out where your break even point is. When you say you're not making money, You need to define when you say we're not making money. Okay. Usually when we look at hotels, every hotel has got a break-even point. And when you look at a break-even point, your break-even, you do a break-even analysis. A break-even analysis is basically all your costs that you have put together. You have your fixed costs, you have a semi-variable cost, and you got your variable costs. And you put all these costs together, and then you get a break-even point. A break-even point means that this is the amount of money you need to make if you need to stay afloat without the owners putting money in their hand in their pocket and giving you money to run the day-to-day operations. That's a break-even point. So the first thing you need to do is identify where is your break-even point for a business. The second thing you need to do is understand what revenues, what is your top line going to be to break that break-even point. So if your break-even point is say $100,000, okay, or say it's $100,000, and your revenue that you need to make that $100,000 comes through different sources. So if your sources are rooms, is say 60%, F&B is 40%, and you may have ancillary income, you may have rental income, you may have shops, you may have other things. So there are two parts to this. You need to look at your cost structure and you need to look at your revenue structure. Okay. Then we talk about marketing. So the first thing you need to start is you need to do an analysis of where your head is above the water, so to speak. Once you know where your head is above the water, you look at these two things in synchrony. Okay. Because in both parts, you can flex up and you can flex down. Okay, so when you look at your revenue, many people focus on cutting costs. Cutting costs, you cannot cut costs you can only cut costs to a certain amount. Okay, you can't cut costs beyond a certain amount. For example, let me take a typical scenario. Say you've got 50 staff in your organization. Okay, now that is your value for the future. You cannot call the 50 staff and say, hey, my business is not good. Go home. I don't need you anymore. You can't do that. Neither can you lock up all the rooms and say, that's it. I'm going to switch off all the air conditioning and that's it. And, I'm going to just shut it off. It doesn't work that way. Right? So there is a cost. We call it a cost of doing business. There is a cost of doing business, and that is your hardware, your software. So you need to first get that number. At where is your cost of doing business? And it all comes down to your budgeting, forecasting, and whatever it is that we'll talk about later. Let's move to top line. Top line. First thing you need to do is where is your source of business coming from? If your 60% of your business is coming from rooms, 40% coming from F&B, you take your 60% and you divide that 60% and say, okay, that 60% I'm getting from rooms, I'm getting wholesale business, corporate business, retail business, group business. You need to start looking at each market segment and decide which market segment is going to really contribute towards the top line. So say, for example, in this time during COVID, people cannot travel from outside. So what do? Then you start looking at a strategy. Marketing comes later. Marketing comes once you have defined which direction you want to go. It's like this. I'll give you a very simple analogy. You use a GPS on a daily basis, right? Or you use a GPS all the time, right? Say you want to go from Melbourne to Geelong, okay? You say that you want to go to the Geelong Football Club. You know you want to go there, right? You have that idea in your mind, but you don't know how to get there. So what do? You use a tool. A GPS is a tool, right? So that tool will tell you, okay, you can go by this freeway, you can go by the back road, you can go by the highway, you can go by this, you can go by train, you can go by bus, you can go by car. So think of a direction as a GPS. So I'm just trying to give you something so you can correlate with what is happening in today's world with business. So if you say that your objective of your hotel is where you're supposed to go, say it's Geelong, you put that GPS on your phone and you say, I want to go to Geelong. and then you choose the route you want to go. Okay, you choose either the fastest way, or you choose the shortest way, or you choose the most economical way. In business, it's the same. You can choose the fastest way, you can choose the most economical way, or you can choose the most, whichever suits you in business. So then you decide, I'm going to Geelong and I'm going in a vehicle. I can go in a Mercedes Benz, I can go in a Toyota, I can go by train. And who am I going to take with me? I'm going to take my family with me, or I'm going to, and then you have all the different tools that you have to get there. Hotel business is exactly the same. You need to decide where your goal is and where you need to be. And then you need to put your strategy together. But the cost of getting there, there is a cost of getting there. Your petrol, whatever cost is involved is there, right? So a business plan that you put in is like your GPS. It tells you, it's like a waypoints, and it tells you how to get there using different methods to get there. So when you do budgeting, you do forecasting, you do your management of your budgets and the management of how you put your business plan together, right? And then again, you think about it again. Why am I going to Geelong? What is there? It's the same for business. Why are we doing this business? What is our core values? Who is our market? Right? What is that unique selling point that we have that people are going to knock on your door? It's the same as, why are you going to Geelong? There must be some reason you're going there. You just don't go there just for the fun of it. There must be a reason. The business is the same. There must be a unique selling point for what your business is. And then, of course, all the other things start to fall in, right? The other things fall in is the type of car you drive. It's the type of brand that you have. You may have a 3-star brand or a 4-star brand or a 5-star brand. Just because it's a 5-star brand doesn't mean it has to be shiny and new and nice, means it's great. No. A 4-star brand actually makes more money than a 5-star brand does, right? So these are all the things of putting a business plan together. So to answer your question in short, the first thing you need to do is have a solid business plan. And a business plan is based on where do you want to go? Why do you want to be there? What are your values? What are our core values of the company? And these are helped. People will help you with these things. There are professionals who will help you with these things. Now, coming down to this, how do you manage the cost? How do you manage the sales? Costs are managed in different ways. For example, in our property, everybody has taken a 50% salary cut. Every single person has taken a 50% salary cut. Why? Because the revenues, we're closed. The hotel is closed. So we go to our staff and we say, you have an option. Either we close the hotel down and everybody loses their jobs, or we close the hotel down, we stay employed, but everybody's on a 50% salary. So you choose. So that is a cost cutting. So what are we doing is we're saving money for the owner. So the owner doesn't have to it's a thing called cash flow. You need to have enough money to pay your business for the future. Then you start looking at different areas, energy cost. So your biggest costs, you need to look at your biggest costs of running a hotel. Labor is the biggest one. Anywhere in the world, labor is the biggest cost. The second cost is energy. Energy management is very, very important, especially in warmer climates or even in colder climates. Heating costs are also quite high. The third costs are things that are ancillary expenses. For example, if you're attached to a company, attached to an international company, there are fees that you need to pay: booking, reservation fees, IT fees, sales and marketing fees, the system fees, IT, all those fees. So can you go and start talking, negotiating with these people and say, hey, you know what? We are in trouble. Can we negotiate? So basically, what are you doing? You're shaving down your costs. It's like you at home. If you want to start, if you say, for example, you unfortunately your income drops, okay, you start tightening your belt. You start eating less expensive foods. You start going less to places where you sort of enjoyment places, and you start becoming more frugal in things. It's the same in business. It's no different in business, right? So there's no magic formula here. It starts from every single cent. So every single cent that you save, you switch off a light, it saves you money, right? You don't throw things in the rubbish bin. Every peel that you throw in the rubbish bin adds up. So it starts with saving cost. And saving cost doesn't mean today I serve 6 dishes in the staff canteen, tomorrow I'm going to cut it down to 2 dishes. That's not saving cost. Okay, so there has to be a methodology in how you do these things. It's the same with driving revenue. How do you drive your top line? The best way is to look at driving top line. So people are people, right? And they always channel their energy to doing something else. You can't keep them locked up. So there are things that have started now called staycations. What is a staycation? A staycation is a person who is living in the same city, tired of staying at home, wants to go and stay in a hotel. This was never there before. Nobody called it staycations before, right? So this new terminology, staycations, have started. So that's something new that's come up. So you start, this is called a treasure hunt. You start hunting for areas to do revenue. There are places here that are doing takeaway, drive-in takeaway stalls, cooking food on the street and selling things just to keep things cash flow running. So there are two parts to managing a business when you're in difficulty: managing the cost, managing the revenue. But the most important part, okay, is, I always say this, is that today's reputation is tomorrow's price. Remember this saying: today's reputation is tomorrow's price. What I mean by that is that the reputation you set up for your business today will help you to earn the price that you want to earn tomorrow. If your reputation today is destroyed, you will not get the price tomorrow that you want. So your reputation today, in today's world, is because of social media. Things can move like wildfire very quickly. Something on Twitter, it just goes bang, and your reputation drops. So there are a multitude of things, and that's why in a hotel you have an executive committee, you have a leadership, you have people. We call it the Holy Trinity in the hotels, right? Apart from the GM, you have the financial controller, you have the director of human resources, and you have the director of sales and marketing. These three people that contribute with the GM constitute the executive committee that really drive the business of the hotel. So whether it is a small restaurant or whether it's a large organization, that those functions, one person can do two functions, it's okay, but those functions do not change. Have I answered your question?
It's like a learning in a hotel management in the few hours. You have connected all the sources, everything, and you inspired us. It's really good, sir. Any second question? Vandana?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, please stand up and speak.
Hello, sir. My name is Bandana Shah. I really appreciate for your time, and I really admire your achievements from journey to shift to become a hotel manager. And actually, I wanted some suggestion from you that I could pursue my goal in future. As I studied my hotel management, and and then it happened to come to Australia to choose a different faculty because I had a dream to become part of the front of the house. But then I'm here studying to become a chef right now, and it's a target to be a PR for short in time. Sometimes I go back and remember my the past experience that might not lead to achieve my to become the hotel F&B manager or something. So would you be able to suggest me that how would I pursue from chef to become a hotel manager?
Okay. Uh, it's Look, it's a question that is on most people's mind. How do I get from where I am to where I want to be? Right? Hey, it's $1 million question, and even I had it when I was growing up. Now, the first thing you need to do, the first thing that you need to do is you need to have a goal, which you do. You need to have a long-term goal, and you need to have a short-term goal. And you need to be realistic in your goal. When I say being realistic in your goal, is that if you say that I want to be the vice president of the company in 10 years time, oh well, some people are lucky enough to achieve it, but I think you need to look at it realistically. So having a goal, the first thing you need to have is a long-term goal. A second thing is a short-term goal. Two things, very, very, very important. And I can tell you from my experience, every goal that I set, I achieved. Every single goal that I set, I achieved. I can very tell you that I set myself a goal and I work towards the goal. Again, I use the analogy of a GPS. You put a point where you want to go to, and you choose the direction you want to go. Now, when you're in the hospitality industry, the most important thing in the hospitality industry, passion, attitude, flexibility, adaptability. If you have these things and the ability to take disappointment, sometimes it looks like a disappointment that has hit you on your face, but it turns out to be the best thing that has happened to you. I've personally faced in life with things that my mind was set on doing. I didn't get it. And then, 6 months later, I said, thank God I didn't get that, because look at where I am now because of that. So there is a thing called the power of positive thinking. And the power of positive thinking works in this way. The first thing you need to do, set yourself a goal. And your goal needs to be a long-term goal and a short-term goal. And why I say this is short-term goal is that if you have a long-term goal that is, say, 3 years or 5 years, it gives you the direction where you want to go to. A short-term goal is something that you need so that it keeps you refreshed. It keeps you hungry for that long-term goal. Say, for example, you got a long-term goal that you want to achieve in 3 years' time. But then what has happened now? COVID has come in between. So your long-term goal shouldn't change, but your short-term goal can deviate slightly. So you need to be able to have a short-term goal. And your short-term goal may be a position. Never think of the next position. Always think of the position after the next position. In hospitality, many people make the mistake of choosing the next position. What is my next position going to be? Because that position will come to you. It's only a matter of time. It's a matter of hard work. And yes, being in the right place at the right time also helps. But your next position will come. But the most important is the position after that. That is the most important part. So you really need to think one step ahead of that next position. So if your next position is going to be, say, assistant manager, and your position after that is an F&B manager, right? So my current level now is a supervisor, and my next position is an assistant F&B manager, assistant manager. You work to your next position, but your position after that is where you should be really focusing on. Why do I say this? Because when you're doing the job that you're in, you're comfortable. Everybody's comfortable in the job that they're doing it. When you're doing a job that you're not in, you're doing the job of the next position. The person above you, who is the boss, looks at you and says, this person has got potential. This person has got the ability to do beyond what he's supposed to do. And this gives that person confidence. It's all about trust and confidence, right? Does your boss trust you? Does the company trust you? Do the people that you work for trust you? So when you start showing things that you can be given that trust, and you can do things beyond what you're doing without having the label. Little bits here, little bits there, little bits there. People start thinking, okay, this guy can do it, or this person can do it, this lady can do it, this person can do this. So they start thinking, okay, I can give this to the next person. But again, to do all this, you must have passion for your job. Persistence. The other thing is persistence. Don't give up. Sometimes you get hit on the head so many times and you think that, really, this is it. I'm going to, that's it. So you should not give up. You need to have passion. You need to have persistence. And you must be able to be flexible with what you do. Being flexible is not, change 180 degrees, but being able to adapt to the situation around you. Don't be so set in your ways and don't be so fixed in the way you think, right? Does that answer your question?
Hi.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Buddhiman, please.
Hi, sir. My name is Chandra. Yeah, from professional media is stand up, and everyone's dream to do so. My question is, what would your typical day as general manager at Organiser International Hotel? How do you plan your day? And yeah, please share it, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. Fair question. Um, I was a GM in the different types of hotels. One of the hotels that I was working was a resort. And I used to live on property in the resort. A typical day for me, wake up in the morning, go and walk around the property. It's a 20 acres property, big property with the beach and with a lot of other, we had 11 swimming pools and we had a lot of things. So when you took at a property like that, the first important thing for a GM is to walk around. There's a thing called, we say, management by walking around. You need to walk around and go and see the property, go and see the people that are working in the property. Focus. I'm a type of a person that believes in people. So what is more important in the property itself or the people who are driving that property? So the first thing you do when you wake up is go and look at the people, go and say hello to everybody, walk around the property, the exterior, the interior, and then you go into your office and then you start, once you get stuck in your office with attacking emails and things like that, it's pretty difficult to get out of the office. And then basically what happens is that the day starts with answering emails and then you go down to the breakfast. If it's a busy breakfast area, you go down to breakfast and you meet with guests. You interact with guests, but depending on the type of property you are, if it's a business property, most of the guests will have early breakfast. Because for a GM, it's very important for you to connect with the three most important people, groups of people in the business. First is your guest. Second is your associates, your staff. Third is the owner. To make sure that you have a balance between these three people is very important. Of course, the management company that you work for or the company that you work for is also very important. But the three most important people is the guests, the associates, and the owners. So you need to divide your time between these. For me, as a GM, I'm a hands-on person, and luckily, I'm involved with every department. I'm involved with IT, I'm involved with engineering, I'm involved with human resources, finance, landscaping, everything. So my day starts in the morning. The chief of security and the chief of engineering comes and sees me every morning. And the reason why I say security is because of the countries that I've worked in, security is very important because there are certain procedures and processes that need to be followed for local government about what happened yesterday and the check-in process of people and visas and things like that. So that's a security protocol. Engineering is important because I want to know how the systems are running to make sure that the air conditioning systems are running okay, everything else is. So once I see my chief engineer, chief of security, they go away. go and do their things. Then you are meeting with your director of human resources, director of finance. So you spend a little bit of time with every department head. And during the time, you go from different places, different departments. You walk around in different departments. I have lunch every time. I have lunch in the staff canteen. I always eat in the staff canteen. And my food in the staff canteen, I'm very proud of the food in the staff canteen. Among all the hotels in Malaysia, we have 50 hotels in Malaysia. My hotel has got the best food for staff. I'm very proud of it because I believe that I eat in the staff canteen every day. I take care of my staff. I take care of my people. So taking care of your people for me is very, very, very important. And then, of course, the day goes on with answering emails and having conference calls. And then, depending on what projects they are, then after the afternoon, it continues into this. And then usually in the evenings, we have either meetings with guests and then when people, if you're in a business hotel, when people come back from office or come back into the hotel, we usually spend some time in the lobby to say hello to the guests, and then in the evenings, maybe meet them for dinner. Again, it depends on what type of business you're running. If you're a city hotel, it's a little bit different. If it's a resort hotel, it's a little bit different. So you got to, but basically, the general manager has to be 24 hours. When I say 24 hours, not physically there, but you need to be there 24 hours. Your presence needs to be felt by the people. They need to understand that, oh, my GM's here and I'm on call 24 hours. If somebody calls me, I answer. Doesn't matter, 3 in the morning. I had a girl who had an accident at 3 o'clock in the morning on the road. She couldn't contact her family. She couldn't contact, so she called the GM. She called me. And I sent somebody from the hotel. She crashed on a bridge. I sent somebody from the hotel to get an ambulance and things like that. So it's got nothing to do with work, but it's with people. It's your team. It's the people that work for you. So the most important part is keeping these three in play. Making sure you're looking after the property, making sure you're looking after the people. From morning to night, it's a non-stop. You need to be in a position where you have multitude of things happening, and you need to be able to handle these things. And I always have an open door policy, which means people don't need an appointment to come and see me. They knock on the door, come in, no problem. If I'm available, you can talk to me at any time. Make yourself approachable to people. The most important thing for a GM is make yourself approachable to people. It doesn't matter who it is, whether it's the owner, whether it's staff or associates, or whether it's the guest. So today's world, because of social distancing, you can't do that, right? But you can still do it virtually. You can still do it by social media, right? So for a GM, as a GM, the main responsibility of a GM, and when I interviewed for this job, I told the owners, I may not listen to what you say to me. I may not listen to what Marriott says to me. For me, the most important thing is you've given me this hotel to manage, right? And my job is to look after the hotel. And my first responsibility is to the hotel. And if the hotel does well, the owners do well and Marriott do well. So sometimes the decision that I make may not agree with you, but it is for the health of the hotel. So the GM's responsibility on a day-to-day basis is to make sure that he fulfills that responsibility of making sure that the hotel is ticking, because the hotel is 365. It doesn't stop. It's not that 6 o'clock, close doors, go home, it's finished. No. So that's my day.
President things. Okay. So, any next question? Anyone? Who's that? Sanjay.
Mine is the last one.
Huh?
Mine is the last one.
Doesn't matter. Okay. Yeah. You can cut the last part. Okay.
Hi, sir. My name is Sanjay Guru. Thanks for sparing your time. It's not a question, but I would like to. Is there anything, something missing we may ask to you? Like you need to suggest us, you'd like to give us some more?
I don't understand your question completely. If you could rephrase that question, I'll be able to answer.
So it's like, is there any some more important topics you need to talk? You'd like to talk on those topics, like we may forget to ask you?
So regarding the
Regarding
hospitality,
the
so
hospitality.
we have not
Okay.
asked the question so far. Would you like to tell from your side what we're supposed to know about the hospitality? Because we have covered the very vast part of the hospitality, but still little from your side can lift their morale.
Well, I think the most important thing that you need to understand is that you are dealing in a business that is constantly changing. It's changing. It's changing so fast that even people who are professionals cannot see what is happening. I mean, if I told you a year ago or a year and a half ago that all the airlines will be facing ruin or all the hotels will be nearly, I mean, companies like Hilton and Marriott will be closing, nearly closing down, you'd laugh at me, wouldn't you? A year and a half ago, if I said that to you. But today, here we are. Airlines are nearly closing. Hotels are nearly closing. But we're still alive, we're still surviving. And what is that due to? It's the fact that you're able to adapt. So the most important thing for the hospitality business is the ability to adapt. And this is very, very, very important. It doesn't matter what you study, what you do, the ability to adapt to your surroundings without losing sight of your goal. That's the most important. But you cannot do this. You just cannot do this. If you have faith in yourself, you need to have faith in yourself. You must have faith in yourself. And you must have the feeling you're passionate about what you do, 100% passion. Attitude is the most important thing. We hire people not for skill, we hire people for attitude. We can train you, no problem. If you have the right attitude, I can train you. Not a difficult thing. But you have the wrong attitude, it's like talking to a piece of brick. I can't do anything. So today's hospitality, from where I joined in hospitality in 1974 to today, it's been a transformational shift. It's been a huge change. But today, I'm still alive in this industry. I'll share with you, I'm 67 years old. I'm not young. I'm 67 years old. Okay? I've seen, I've literally seen a person come and stand before me, opened his jacket with a bomb strapped to his chest in one of the properties that I worked in. Right? It'll turn your hair gray. But being able to adapt to today's world without losing focus, without losing your passion, without losing your energy is what will take you through. Because hospitality will change. What you see hospitality today may be different in 3 months' time or 6 months' time. But what won't change is your passion for it, your energy for it. If that doesn't change and you adapt to what is moving along, you'll do very well. And sometimes things take time. In today's world, unfortunately, people are used to things coming very quickly to them. You're talking to a person who grew up on vinyl records, who grew up in books, we had no internet when we grew up. We had to go to the library to study. Today, you get everything at the touch of a button. And that's called instant gratification. I touch a button, I get this. I can shop online, I get this. So, whatever your mind is conditioned to get things what you want very quickly. And that's today's world. And when you don't get it, you get frustrated and you get upset and you get very agitated. And that's today's world. But there is a remedy for this. And being realistic about it, look at things outside and look at things outside the box and see how the world is changing. And hospitality will change. People say hotels will die. Hotels will never die. People got to stay, people got to eat. It'll just change into another form. But if you have that passion and if you have that drive, and something that I mentioned to you earlier, as soon as you finish this course, set yourself a goal, set yourself a target, set yourself a long term goal and a short term goal. Make it realistic, write it down, and go and look at it time to time and see, are you on track? Forget all this. I mean, yes, studies are important. Studies are the bedrock for all this. But without goals, again, I now go back to the GPS analogy that you have a beautiful car, you have a beautiful road, but you got no place to go to. What are you going to do? Drive where? Where are you going to drive to? Right? So think of life, don't make it complicated. Just try and use what you're doing in life on a daily basis to what you're doing at work. Right? It's not that complicated. Okay?
It is really good to hear what we can't find anywhere in the book. What we're learning is a precious, is out of the world. Okay, any other question, guys? Anyone? Maria? Yeah, okay, Maria. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Marriot International from Philippines. Probably I was supposed to ask something, but I think I got your answer somewhere. So I'll probably ask something else. What is the most difficult decision you had to do in the hotel? And second is, how do you spend time with your family? That
Okay.
because you said earlier you have to be available 24 hours. So I'm curious about that.
Very good question. Very, very good question. I must share with you that my focus was on my job during my younger days. So I was so focused on my job, one eye only on the job, that my family life suffered. It did suffer. It suffered a great deal. And then you need to have that work-life balance. And I learned the hard way, the work-life balance. And the other question that you have, sorry, what was the other question? One was the family. What was the other question? Sorry?
Your difficult decision
Okay.
yeah, as a GM.
Ah, one of the most difficult decisions I had to make at any time, it's not only once, is when you have to terminate somebody, when you have to ask somebody that they have to leave. And you know that there is a line between your personal feeling and business. So every time, and this difficult decision happens, there are many difficult decisions that comes on a daily basis. For example, I had to take the decision to close this hotel for a month. That's a difficult decision. It's not an easy decision. But the most difficult decision for me personally is to sit in front of somebody and tell them, sorry, we have to let you go. Because when they come to you, you employ them, you're giving them hope, you're giving them something. You're not only talking about one person, you're talking about that person's family, you're talking about their family, right? And when you have to sit down in front of somebody and say, sorry, you have to go, it's a very difficult decision. And unfortunately, I had to do it many, many, many times, not only once. But throughout my years, I've had many difficult decisions I had to take. And some were painful, some were very painful. But the most painful ones for me are the ones where you have to tell a trusted member of your team or a member of the team who's doing very well, but because of something, whether it's a company policy or because of something that's happened, you have to let the person go. That is one of the most difficult decisions for me. Everything else is okay.
The second part was how you find the time for your family, apart from when you're working as a GM and the 24 hours you are occupied. How do you find little time
Okay.
for family?
Okay. When I was working in the resort hotels, I used to live in the hotel. I used to live on property. And I had a very strong rule. Once I went home, which means that people wouldn't disturb me. They respected my space at home. But if there was an emergency, I would always be on call. I spent my days off to myself. My days off were my days off, which means I would either get out of the property, go somewhere else, even just sit at home and watch TV, but it was my time. And that balance is, you must be disciplined within yourself to do that. Otherwise, you don't have that healthy balance between life. I mean, I developed hobbies like drone flying and, I'm an IT guy. I do computers. I play golf. I do photography. So I have different hobbies that I picked up. And that time was my time. And I condition my people, or I tell my people that, you're on your own. If you need me, I'm there, but try to do things. And I groom them to take these difficult decisions, unless they come to a point when they have to call me. And I spend my time with my family. I reserve my time with my family. I cook at home. I still love cooking. Cooking is the most amazing thing that I believe for me. It helps me relax. It helps me meditate. It helps me do a lot of things. For my hobby is cooking. So I spend time at home cooking. I do different dishes. I'm an expert on making biryanis. I'm an expert on doing different new things, and I do a lot of things. But that time is for me. And yes, you need to be able to hold that precious time for yourself. I have two dogs. I have little toy poodles, small ones, and for me, that is my time. And people know that, and they leave me alone during that time. But at one stage, I didn't do that. And it hurt me. It hurt my family. It hurt everybody. And I learned through the hard way that that's not the right thing to do. So you need to be able to set yourself a discipline that you must have time for your family. But unfortunately, in this business, Christmas doesn't mean a thing. New Year's don't mean a thing. The days that are supposed where other people play and you work, and you play and other people work. That's the kind of industry you're in, right? So you got to get used to it. You can't change that, right? So once you get used to this, and once you understand that Christmas Day, maybe you have to shift one day or another day, these things, the family gets used to it, and the family, and most important, you need to have a very understanding partner. You must have a very understanding partner who understands the type of job you're doing, understands, but at the same time, you need to respect that too. You can't just take everything. Okay?
I think we have covered everything, what these guys are going to learn in a whole year, and we have learned the whole essence of the hospitality management in the few hours from you, from the experienced people. Please clap hands together. Well done, sir. Anybody else? No? All good? So we're very good, sir. And now we like to thank you, sir, for giving your valuable time, to sharing your experience with us. So it is our opportunity to say thank you. And other way, because our Glen Institute like to present you a saying a certificate. It is saying so thank you very much for giving you and sharing your experience with us. So I'm going to
Thank
send
you.
you the email, sir, and this for you, sir. So
Thank you very much.
you will remember us for a long time. Till we see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you
And
very much.
when you are in Melbourne, please visit us.
I
Okay?
will.
It
I
will
will.
be great to see you here, sir.
Okay.
Thank you,
Stay
sir.
safe.
Okay,
Stay
thank
safe.
you.
Bye.
Bye, bye, bye.